everyone. All you beautiful peeps out there, thank you so much for being here and watching my show again today. I'm so excited and happy to bring back Mary Deioma. Hi, Mary.
Hi. So happy to be back with you, Sharon.
Oh, thank you for being here and thank you for chatting with me again. And I finished your book. I suggest everyone in the world buy this book. It's not a very big book, but it's packed with tons and tons of stuff. Loved A Transcendent Journey. And it's about, and if you haven't seen my first conversation with Mary, I would suggest watching that. But it's about your experience, your transcendent experience in the waking state, the conscious waking state. Right?
Fully awake.
Fully awake and driving while she's driving a car, no less.
No, no loss of consciousness, completely, fully conscious.
Yeah, which is amazing. So I can't wait to dive into it, into your continuing story, because there was so much that we could talk about after our first chat. It would have been an 8-hour long probably video if we if we kept going. So hopefully we'll be on more, because I'm sure there's lots that we can cover even beyond what we're talking about today. Yeah, because she's come out with a new book too, right?
Yes.
Mary. Okay. And do you mind?
I'll tell you real quick, and then or people hang on to the end to find out about the new book. How about that?
Good idea. Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay. I'm just so excited. You got to keep me in. Okay. So, all right. If you could share just a little bit about your background. I mean, most of it's in our first video, but just a little bit about what brought you to writing this book. Okay. And then you peeps out there, if you want to know more detail about it, please see the first video. Okay.
Well, I had this phenomenal experience, and it, completely blew my mind and changed the way I saw everything. And of course I had to write about it. But how that was a whole nother struggle, trying to figure out how to put thoughts of the ineffable into words. And well, anyway, totally crazy. But yeah, I had this divine experience of oneness and beyond, and then again and again and again. And I just had something to say, and I just had to say it.
Nice.
Let's see what happens.
That's awesome. And thank you for doing that, because not a lot of people can find the words to be able to put their experiences down, on paper, or even journal it, because these experiences are near-death experiences, even some really, really profound out-of-body experiences too. Also, plant medicine journeys. I found some of my plant medicine journeys, which I don't do anymore because they just go, whoa. How do you put those into words when you are, traversing other realities and that type of thing? So thank you. I just want to say thank you for taking the time and energy and being able to put that down and put your thoughts, your experiences, those experiences down in words, so that we can at least have how do I put it? Because as I was reading, I'm going to share, as I was reading it, I was like, oh my gosh, that correlates with something that I experienced at the time, but I didn't quite understand what was going on. And so you were able to, and I really appreciate your background in, at least you did put yourself in a background of scientific research and things like that, where you were able to explain things, bring it down, into earth or 3D, wherever we're at terms. So I appreciate that. And that helps tie things together where it's not so airy fairy, out in the ethers.
So are you talking about the beginning where I have the logical approach? Or are you talking about the after where I went and studied physics so I could figure out how to talk about it?
The after, where you study
Okay.
physics. Yeah, that approach. I really appreciate that you did that for yourself and were able to put things in perspective where you could understand in a way that makes sense to you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because hopefully I grounded it on both ends of the story, because I started very grounded and very skeptical in life and very much in doubt of anything supernatural or divine, and really wanting to find evidence of that. And so I've like gone full circle to then using science to back up my experience and math.
Right.
So,
Right. Yeah. You had somewhat of a left brain to begin with anyway, right?
well,
More in the left brain.
I don't know about that, but
Okay.
I may be balanced. I hopefully
Yeah.
my brain is balanced. I'm left-handed, so I'm right brain, but I'm very visual. Like I like graphic design and photography, but also I like words. I like the special finding the perfect word for the perfect idea. So
Nice.
I think that's both sides.
Yeah. You used one word in the beginning that I didn't really know what it meant until I saw you using it or read that you used, and I think you used it in our last video too, is ineffable. And I had to look it up. I mean, I have a sense of what it meant, but I didn't quite, I haven't heard that word used that I remember in my circles anyway, or where I am. And if you could explain the way you use that word.
Well, in my research of spirituality in the beginning, I came across this word too, where people would just say, oh, it's ineffable. And that was frustrating because it really doesn't latch into anything grounded in reality. Because what it is saying is there's something that has happened in our experience that there are no words for. So the words don't exist to describe something. There's nothing in our experience on earth that comes close to this experience that we've had, so that we're reaching for words that don't exist. And then even if you make up a word, it doesn't really attach to anything unless you do it in such a way that you attach it somewhat to ideas that already exist. So anyway, that's what ineffable means. It's like saying there's something that I've experienced that's so far beyond this physical experience that there's no words for it. Yeah. And it's frustrating to the audience because, if I'm going to Paris and I'm going to tell you what the Eiffel Tower is, okay, I can say it's a metal structure, it's a metal tower. I can use words that you can kind of link to, but this is so far out of reach. There's no links, and you have to try to build those links in ideas and concepts and use the words that you can find and make up.
Right. Thank you. And I found the English language is not the best language for descriptions of things that are beyond our normal everyday comprehension. Not that I know any more languages, but it just feels like and I don't know, what do you think? Does the English language feel kind of clunky to you?
I only speak English, so I'm kind of fond of it.
Okay.
But I do see that I'm aware that people who study Buddhism have other words that we adopt, like akasha. or Akashic records. We've adopted those words because they're describing something that isn't normal experience in our culture, but it's a normal experience in their culture, and they have more words for it. And like the Eskimos have so many words for snow, and I learned a new word coming back to Ohio. There's a kind of snow called grapple. And I'm like, what is that? Okay, that's the snow that looks like styrofoam. And I'm like, oh, okay, new word. Anyway,
That's cool.
but you have a description of something that it looks like so that you can attach to it.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the Akashic records is this experience of going into what I have also heard called the noosphere, or the anyway, but I think my experience was tapping into the Akashic field, which is a field where you have all the knowledge, or you have access to all the knowledge. It's so you can get the story of people, or the story of you, or the story of the narrative of information that is formed into a narrative so that it's useful.
Right. Yeah. And that brings me to what the first thing I want to talk about with your experience is your life review. You decided, you had the inspiration, and correct me if I'm wrong, to do a life review. At that time, did you know that when we had you heard that when we die that we can go through, or normally most what I've heard, that you, and I didn't experience a life review consciously that I know of in my near-death experiences, but I knew something. I knew it was that I knew that we do it. I just knew it, but I didn't remember mine. Did you know that we do something like that after we die?
Well, I had been exposed to the documentaries about near-death experiences. Okay. And in those documentaries, there is George Ritchie, and I think especially Daniel Brinkley talks a lot about his life review. And I was, I must have had that as part of my research, because I started to read up on, I found the NDERF, NDERF.org website, which has people's near-death experiences. It's Near-Death Experience Research Foundation. That's what the letters stand for. And then also the International Association of Near-Death Studies. But I actually didn't find IANDS until after my experience. But before my experience, I found NDERF, and I was reading about other people's near-death experiences as just part of my curiosity. And also, like, coming from its position of doubt, I was thinking that maybe people's firsthand accounts might have some new information or hold some credibility, where I had lost any belief in the physical Bible at that time, or whatever the different religious dogmas. I didn't feel resonant with that information. So I started to do some research. And in doing the research, it had a profound effect. But that's what gave me the idea that, so if God is giving people a life review as part of their orientation or onboarding to heaven, like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, then, that's pretty good recommendation right there. So I thought, well, I could do that. I don't need to die to do that. I can imagine doing it. I can imagine all the different. So I used the that as something to try, as an experiment, because I didn't know what was going to happen, but it's a thing that can be done. And I thought, let me just see what happens.
Nice. And remind me again, was this before or after your experience in the car?
It was before.
Before, that's what I thought. Okay. Yeah. Right. And so I was just sharing with Mary before we came on that I think that's an amazing idea. You know, why wait until we die to review our life when we can do that in the conscious state, what we can and will, would remember, because after my near-death experience, wasn't even conscious that I had a near-death experience, but I started going through all of this life review, I guess you could say, remembering my childhood when I wasn't, when I had huge gaps in my childhood. I didn't remember most of my childhood. And so all of that started coming up during my meditations. And I didn't, but I didn't even think of it until I was reading your book. Oh my gosh, that's what was happening to me in a emotionally profound way, remembering a lot of what happened during my childhood, and how much I mean, it happened the way it happened, so I guess it needed to happen that way, but how much more in control maybe we could be if we're doing that on a conscious level, in our own time, in our own space type of thing. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, I mean, but what was happening? I mean, for you, what happened?
Oh, I had my memories were coming up of being abused as a child from a family member, and I didn't remember any of that. I just knew there was something there that didn't feel right, but I didn't have any conscious memory of it. So it was repressed, and also extraterrestrial, and 3 caretakers that saved my life more than once from the abuser. And so I was dealing with all that, and in my meditations, where all the memories just started coming up, where I could feel the physical pain, I could smell the vomit, I was going through all the physical stuff that I don't know if it's all, but as much as I could handle, that I was experiencing at that time.
And so that happened as you were after your near-death experience, or during, or sometime after?
It was after, because I started meditating and fasting. I was connecting to my guidance and Yeshua, and he was giving me the information, of my higher guides. I was working with higher guides, and he was telling me that I needed to fast. I need to fast in order to clean out whatever it was. So my memories went all the way back to not just this life, but many, many, many Atlantis. And so all that was coming up for me. Fasting and meditating. I made a commitment to be in my room every night and journaling like crazy. Journal, that was the number one thing he said to do, was journal, get everything out, get it out. So which is why I'm a journaling freak now. But yeah, so that is really important, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. So your intuition and your guidance was spot on. So you were tapped in for sure. And it's amazing how one story validates another too, that even though yours was, going a different path, but it was still hitting the same points all along.
Right. Good point. And I don't know if it would have been any different for me, but it was a conscious decision for you, well, with your guidance, help with your guidance system, to start doing that.
I didn't validate my guidance at that point because I was still in doubt. I didn't think, I thought it was all me. I mean, it is all basically all me, but it was more from ego. It was like, oh, I think I have the greatest idea. But it was really guidance, like, whispering in my ear and saying, hey, try this. And, it, whatever, however you want to look at it. But I was in denial of it, of any supernatural information at that time. And so I was very grounded in, when I was doing the life review, I was just like, oh, I am just only mental and emotional. So the mental part first, and then go back and do the emotional, and so that I could cleanse it out. I didn't realize, you know what it was? It was like Mr. Miyagi saying, wash the, wash the floor and wax on, wax off. And you have to do it this way exactly, but you don't know that that's building your muscles. And it's not only just building your muscles, but it's raising your vibration, which I didn't have a clue about. Not only that, but it's helping as you start to remember a little bit, you tap into threads and you remember more about that. And then, sometimes your memories go chronologically, but a lot of times the memories go by subject, and that reminds you of one thing, reminds you of another thing, reminds you of another thing. And as you start to practice, you're using your memory gets way better. And that's when I went past this life's memories and I remembered past lives, like waking, like I wasn't asleep. I mean, I did remember some in dreams, but like I would just have a memory pop up of a past life, just like a memory of this life pops up, and you get reminded. And so that was like, okay, how can I even have that information? And I'm like, so that, takes you down another rabbit hole, trying to figure out how can that even happen, especially if you're still in doubt of how that happens. And anyway, it was an interesting journey,
to say the least. Yeah. Yeah, I can relate to that, because in my meditations, past lives just kept popping up. And I was kind of in, not that I was a skeptic or anything. I mean, I didn't, during my adult life, I mean, I was raised Catholic, and not a good Catholic, definitely not. And so I was ambivalent about, I believed there was a higher power. I believed in God. I believed in Jesus, Yeshua, but I felt that he was held up on some pedestal, and God was held up on some pedestal by the Catholic teachings, where we weren't worthy of being able to communicate. Yeah.
And then we had to go through an intermediary of the priest. It's totally not true.
Right. That they are the ones that had the pipeline to God and Jesus, not us. We were sinners. So that kind of thing. So that was my idea about that. And and there was so much in me that didn't feel worthy of that connection as well with God. And I realized that through my past life memories and remembering what got me here. And so yeah.
You are worthy. First of all, you are worthy. And did you realize that that's one of their mantras that the church actually indoctrinates into you? It is the act of contrition. Is like, that's their script, that you're supposed to say this, and they teach you as a young child. And I don't even want to say it, because that's the wrong program. You are worthy.
Right. Yeah. And it took Jesus, Yeshua, to help me remember that. Yeah, it took.
And we have to keep reminding ourselves, because it's one of those ones that's so deeply ingrained in us, because they've been programming us from
that long time.
First time you were taken to church.
Right. Yeah. So that's a whole other show. That does come up a lot in this realm, though, doesn't it? The programming that we've been that we come forward, and it, you know, and it's amazing now. I think of it as just such a gift that when we do remember how to clear these programs and remember that we are worthy and that we're love. We're walking love, walking, talking, breathing love.
You're loved, and you're lovable, and you're adorable. I like the word adorable because it resonates with me that because when I look at a young child or whatever, I feel, oh, that child is adorable. And then I want to just turn that around and look at myself with that type of loving perspective. So you are adorable.
Yeah, well, thank you. So are you. And so are you, those that are watching. Yes, watching us. So are you. Don't ever forget that.
Yes.
We are powerful beyond what we could even imagine as these embodiments. So it's all good stuff. It's just a amazing time right now. So if you don't mind, I'm going to go through your book, and I have marked a lot of spots, so hopefully we can get through a few of these that I wanted to talk about. Well, you mentioned here about finding things using Saint Anthony. Is that who it was, to find things? That I do the same thing. I don't call on Saint Anthony, but I do call on my my helpers to help me find things.
Yep.
And it works every time.
It's a good one. It's a good one. Yep. Yeah. So I learned this from my mom. So it's funny how spiritual my mom was, even though she was very Catholic. She was very spiritual. Mm-hmm. And so she taught me, Tony, look around. Something's lost and must be found. And then you hold space for something. You like imagine a blank screen, or you just don't think of anything for a second. Don't force it, and let something bubble up into your however your mind works best, with whether you get a feeling, a pull, you may get a vision, you may hear a word or see a word. Everybody gets it differently, but you just open up, just let it go for a minute and see what pops up.
Yeah. And
then you will be surprised how accurate that first idea is.
I agree. We tend, what I found with doing that, because I do that, I just bring myself into that calm space, ask my peeps to and clear my mind, because we have to clear our mind. Yeah, ask my peeps to help me find and tell them what I've so that I love your ritual or your mantra, find whatever, and then tell them what I'm trying to find, and give, and then sit in that space. It doesn't take that long, maybe 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 at the most. And there it pops into your mind, and for me, it works. I think we get, as you know this, Mary, I'm sure, and people watching, when we're kind of frantic about stuff, we get in our own way, and we can't really think straight, or we're not connected. We're in that.
Yeah, it helps you to move out of your mind and into your heart a little bit. I have another couple one, like Saint Pierre, hear my prayer, clear the road from here to there, so the traffic gets out of the way. So, and it's a safe travels. So a lot of people pray to Saint Christopher for traveling, but also there, Saint Pete is very good for finding that parking space.
Saint Pete. Yeah, it does. I call them the parking angels, but whoever they are, yeah, it works. You might have to take a few rounds, but it works. So one thing I also, so remember that, peeps, that's good information there to help with your everyday stuff. You were talking about an experience you had in the 8th grade, where you saw you were thinking about the future. You were on the monkey bars, it says, and you thought about the future, and your future self, and you had an expansive moment. Can you share that?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, okay, so I was 14 in 8th grade at the after graduation, after school was out, and our house is literally right across the street from the school and the playground. So I was just on my own in this vacant playground, climbed up to the top of the monkey bars, and was just like you know, kind of in that transition moment from graduating from 8th grade, where you're the top of the hierarchy, and then not really that anticipatory of being low man on the totem pole of the next rung, but still optimistic, and it's also scared about what's going to happen in the future. And I thought about my future self, and I just had this expansive moment where I could feel my like future selves looking back at me. And now, after being exposed to a lot more stuff, I imagine that Hindu god that has like all the different faces, like the all the ages of the faces. Like, I think that's kind of that moment where I saw, each time that I would remember that moment, the face that I would have, which would be different. Like right now, I have a little gray hair. When I first thought about it, writing the book, I had the brown hair, and one maybe a different time was I bleached my hair and I had blonde hair, and so like I would look different in each of those times that I thought about that moment. And like in my mind's eye, from my 8th grade self, I could see all these different future selves looking at me. So every time I think about that moment, it's creating another layer in the past that past self is experiencing. So it's really connecting with myself every time.
That's a mind pretzel kind of thing. Wow. And in the 8th grade, you were doing that in the 8th grade. That's crazy.
Well, it just happened, so I wasn't trying on that one. It just was like a moment. And also, then once it passed, I forgot about it, and it went back into the vault, and it didn't come up again until I was doing my life review. Okay. And then it bubbles up again, and I'm like, that's when I like, there was a gap of the ages of, that was the first future self looking back at that moment. And now I don't know how many times I'm like, when I'm going about my day, I don't think about that moment, but like this moment where we're talking about it, it's creating another connection to that moment. Right. When I wrote the book, it created another connection to that moment. When I read the book to create the audio, which still isn't done yet, created another connection to that moment. Wow. So, but then I'll go on with life for a minute and don't think about it.
Yeah, because that would kind of drive us crazy if we're constantly in that space of seeing each moment like I kind of see it like a film slide or something, where if we're slowing down time, then we see the moments just moment by moment type of thing. Is that kind of what you're describing? Does that make sense? And how we change and it change, our circumstances change and everything, but not in a linear fashion.
Yeah,
because I see it
non-linear,
circular.
Yeah. I was thinking it of like a what is that word? I'm blanking on it.
I don't know.
Mandelbrot. What is
Oh, the fractals, the Mandelbrot
fractals? Yeah,
fractals. Okay.
like
Yeah.
a fractal.
Okay. Well, the first time I watched the Mandelbrot fractals going in, you know, and moving further and further in and further in, I bawled like a baby. I don't even know why, but I guess it was just such recognition and such, it was like being in the presence of God as I was going in and in and in, you know, there's a video on YouTube if anyone wants to see it, but there's different forms of the Mandelbrot fractals, but I was blown the freak away.
So I think that I was thinking about,
Okay.
as I thinking about in this moment, that's kind of what comes to my mind. I see this ever unfolding experience that keeps folding in on itself or opening up from itself, more like unfolding.
Okay. Okay.
Ever unfolding experience.
Okay. That's
so
cool.
It's like a feedback loop, but it's more like a flower that keeps
blooming and enveloping itself as it keeps blooming, like the Mandelbrot. Yeah, keeps going and going and going. It's an infinite, keeps going and going infinitely.
Yeah,
going. Yeah.
Does that help? I don't know. Just make it more confusing.
It does both. Okay. But I'm just, you know, I think that's really cool that you were in the 8th grade when that came to mind. So you were destined for big things. It's on the monkey bars, climbing the monkey bars. I mean, you know, as kids, I don't know, maybe it was just me that didn't get stuff like that, or maybe I did and I just don't remember, you know, but we're more open to that kind of stuff, right? Yeah. It reminded me of an experience I had where I was in going through my quickening, and I was in my room and I just laid down for sleep. And all throughout, well, this is a different, I'm thinking of 2 different experiences. The one I wanted to share was I just fallen asleep, or not fallen asleep. I was in the in-between state, and all of a sudden, all my lifetimes, I feel, were being shown to me, and I was reliving, or sort of reliving little snippets of them, from going from the amoeba all the way back to like a single cell amoeba, all the way forward to, you know, to frog and fairies, elementals, humans, other beings. And then I saw a world, or explosions that I felt was a planet exploding, that kind of thing. And who I feel that, and all the way back to source, leaving source, going all the way right back to source, and just this enveloping, like you were talking about, experience. And I saw some past lives that were extremely traumatic, and some that were happy. I saw, as I was a part of a group of cedars, you know, on planets, it's just all this crazy. Yeah, that's what that, as I was reading that experience, what it reminded me of. And it lasted all night.
Wow. I'm so glad that you connected with that in such a way that it alivened that experience of yours. And also, like, the second one, what was the second one that popped in your head?
Oh, the second one was, I was working through my past lives, and there was one lifetime where I was, and that's crazy, but it has a huge story to it, but I'll try to put it succinctly, where I remembered being a woman named Prudence in the Civil War, during the Civil War. And my brother, and I was married to a minister, his name was Robert Osgood. I remembered so much about this lifetime. His name was Robert Osgood. And my brother, whose name Quincy, we lived in Virginia, and he signed up for he went off to the war. He came back with scarlet fever, and we ended up getting sick and dying. And I had a little boy who, and I didn't know this at the time, this is just a backstory for it, but I didn't know this at the time, but I was dreaming in this life, I was dreaming about a little boy running around looking for his mother, a 3-year-old little boy running around looking for his mother. And in my state, in this personality, I didn't know who he was. I was just trying to help him find his mother. And then one night, as I'm working on this retrieval, I'm working on it. I keep going to try to find her. And this is when I was working on retrievals, and she was a difficult one to retrieve. I just lay down and go to sleep. The ceiling opens up, completely opens up, and this beam of light, I hear this angelic type music, and I want to talk about that, which you wrote in your book. This angelic type music and singing, and this beam of light comes down and hits me in my solar plexus. And I see this little boy that's in a fetal position rise up, and I hear this, that kind of music, and I see this shimmering light in the beam of light. It was a golden with shimmering light rise up and move up in this beam, and then went through whatever, however high it went. And I hear this big booming voice say, "It is done." And then everything closes. And I realized that as soon as I'm back here, or everything is back to this reality, that was the little boy, and he was my little boy in that lifetime, and his name was Rye. And I had, and then I was able to retrieve her after that.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's really cool. Profound. I was also thinking, with all my genealogy that I do, I probably could find that lifetime in in the records.
Mm-hmm.
With that much information. We can find that life.
I looked for it. I don't remember what I got, but what confirmed it for me, I was on a spiritual group, and again, I'll show this quickly, online, and we were doing retrievals for a fire in Rhode Island. The band Great White, they had, I don't know if you remember that. I'm a rocker, so okay. They were having a concert at this club in Rhode Island, and it burned down and people died. So some of us, we were doing retrievals for that, and I traveled in an out-of-body experience to Rhode Island. I ended up at a house first, and there was a man with his wife playing cards with a couple, and I was walking around the house and I was talking to the man during the out-of-body experience, and then I went on to do the retrieval. So I shared that on the group, and someone on the group, his name is Tim, he shared that I was at his house. And and as I was sharing my experiences about the past life, he said they play cards with their neighbors all the time. He has a wife. I described his house. He remembered being in the Civil War, and his name was Quincy. He had a sister named Prudence. We described our childhoods almost exactly to the T. Yeah. So that was crazy.
So cool. Validation. Wow.
Yeah. So anyway, that was side. We went off the rails there, Mary, but yeah, that was cool. That triggered that experience, remembering that unfolding of all my lifetimes in that. You in your book here, you were talking about releasing or how do I say it, healing, being able to stand up for yourself, kind of thing. Okay, because you had you said original timeline where I never fought back. Also had a second new timeline and new memories of the intervening years from a life that unfolded as a result of fighting back. Can you share some more about that experience? Because I find that's fascinating. I can relate to it too.
Yeah. So it happened as just part of the life review process, where I kept coming across this memory, and I was like, part of part of the life review process is to see it from the other people in that experience perspective and try to find a way to understand their motivation and to really step into their shoes so you can find a way to forgive the situation, and also to give that experience a voice. And the final is to find something positive that comes out of it. But I had this one experience that every time I got to, I just like, nope, can't do it. Can't forgive it. Can't get over it. Can't heal it. Next lifetime, I'm not dealing with it. And anyway, even really going back and doing this, what ended up happening helped a lot, but it didn't completely obliterate it, but still helped a lot. So what ended up happening is I wished I could go back in time so that it never happened. And that was my true, authentic wish that I had about that experience. And anyway, I kept trying to heal it, like through the process that I was doing, but it wasn't happening. So I was gifted in an out-of-body experience with an opportunity to literally go back in time. And I didn't know this was gonna happen. I was just suddenly in it, where I was back in my childhood body before I was about to be beaten up by the bully. And I became conscious, became aware that I was back in time, and the moment in my life where this was, I was, familiar with my life enough to recognize this is gonna happen right now. And I kind of panicked, and I also I was kind of confused about how this happened or why it happened. I mean, higher self knew it happened because I wanted it to happen, and I had been wishing for it to happen, but I was not integrated that yet. And anyway, so I became conscious and aware that I was in my childhood self body, and I was about to be beat up by this bully, and I did not have an escape. I did not have tools. All I had was my more mature consciousness as a defense. And so I had the thought, well, all right, it's gonna happen. I'm gonna get beat, but maybe this time I can make sure that that bully feels pain, so that that bully can learn, that some of the pain they're giving me, they can get back, so that they can learn from that, or at least I can feel some sense of power that I stood up for myself. Anyway, so the bully comes at me, and I just start punching, pommeling as hard as I could. And I'm not that strong, but I could feel like that some of my punches were landing, and I just got in a solid punch, and I felt like that, really hurt that bully. And then all of a sudden I woke back up in my bed, my present bed, and I was like, oh, really wow. And I got a download of all these, in all the memories that happened because I fought back. And it I realized I created a rift in time. I'm sorry, but I, you know, it works for me. So anyway, but I had my original, or I still have my original timeline memories, and then all of a sudden I had all these like life passed before my eyes, new memories of a life where I defended myself rather than just be a doormat. And the self, the feel, the who I am had become a different me in a sense. I mean, still the oneness that we all are, but the identity or the my let's
Your
see,
personality or your individual.
my, I don't know, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't have a
The
word for
Mary
it right
here.
now.
The Mary here.
The Mary.
That's what I said.
Yeah.
The Sharon here, the Sharon there, the Sharon over there. Yeah.
Yeah, the new Mary,
The
the
new
new
Mary.
Mary had a little bit more self-confidence. The new Mary had a lot more assertiveness. The new Mary was probably maybe too aggressive for a minute until I was able to balance it out, because then I was like, give me a fight to fight. I want any kind of fight. Give me a fight because I can fight now. And I was like, give me some bad customer service so I can tell you what to do with it. Like, wow. I'm ready to fight. Eventually I figured out, because I got in trouble at work for arguing, or, you know, creating trouble.
Oh, that's so
because I wanted to fight, that I figured out, oh, I have to just be assertive and not really aggressive, and there's a balance.
There's a
balancing act. Yeah.
That's amazing. First thing I want to ask you, are you a boxer? The way you hold your hands is like a boxer. Have you taken boxing or anything?
I took some Taekwondo.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I can tell.
Yes, I did take Taekwondo until I took it until I got my purple belt.
Oh.
And that's after purple is when they start actually hitting you and making contact. And I'm like, nope, I'm out. I don't want to be hit.
Wow.
But yeah, I really enjoyed that.
Oh, I bet. Yeah. No, I love that. So what basically maybe happened, do you think that you integrated that those empowering parts of yourself where you did stand up for yourself and you did fight back, only and then you're like, okay, wow, man, come on, bring it on kind of thing, until you were able to find balance with it, right? Does that make sense?
Yep. That's what happened.
I saw a movie last night. I went to the theater first time in years. Everything Everywhere Now, I think it's called. It's a new movie out, and it's kind of a kung fu type movie, but it also has some really good messages. It was way too long for me. It was 2 hours and 20 minutes, but well, but anyway, it's what they do in the movie is they present something very similar to what you're talking about right now, where this woman brings in other parts of herself in other universes. They say it's other universes, parallel universes, where she's in a kung fu instructor, and she needs that to bring all those things into her life, all these parts of her, or other universe parts of her, so that she can take care of her life in that current state where her other counterparts, her husband in another universe, her child in another universe, not her child, but other counterparts in the current life, come to her as the other parts and telling her, you need to save the universe, because everything's going to come crumbling down if you don't figure out what to do. to save the universe because there's one person that she trained that was too powerful for their own good, apparently. And anyway, it's a commentary on 3D stuff, and also integrating those parts of us that are in other realities.
Empowered in different ways than we presently are.
Yeah.
And I like that. I like the parallel universe idea. I feel like that might be the real reason that there is the Mandela effect, and that's a whole,
that's another show.
rabbit hole to follow. But yeah, I don't know. I always felt time travel was possible. I just, when I love the sci-fi movies, and when I see the time travel, I'm like, yeah, that resonates with me. Right. And so does the parallel dimensions one. I really loved Sliders. That was a series that
I did too.
And yeah, there's so many that are going on now. There's a movie on Amazon, or a series on Amazon Prime called Counterpart, and that's dealing with the parallel dimensions as well. And I love how fiction is really gives us a chance to explore all of these great ideas in a way that's playful and not so serious, so that then when we do experience something like this that's profound, at least even if we don't know a person that has had like this experience, we can at least use that movie to compare it. I thought so I had my experience when I was about the time travel one. I think I was 35, so that was anyway, it was 2000. I don't know when the butterfly effect came out with
Ashton Kutcher.
Ashton Kutcher, yes. And but that kind of was a lot like my experience, how I traveled to myself, in my soul to my body, from my older body to my younger body. That's how they did that time travel in that movie, and I'm like, yeah, that's how time travel works. By the way, time travel is totally possible from your body to your younger self, or from your body to your older self. Because then the movie The Kid with Bruce Willis, he also, he had a visitation like in the physical that was a little bit different, but it was a good thing to get you to love your younger self with all your flaws, because you tend to be judgmental about yourself. But if you
yeah, this is such good stuff. I want to go back to the forgiveness when you started sharing your last experience.